Most people don't lose power in big moments. They lose it in small ones. Moments that look harmless. Moments that feel automatic. Moments they don't even notice. A message appears, and they reply instantly. A comment hits their ego, and they rush to respond. Someone misunderstands them, and they feel the need to explain. It happens fast, too fast, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. Because power doesn't collapse all at once. It leaks, quietly, gradually, through habits that feel completely normal. Every reaction you give is a piece of control you hand away. Every explanation you offer is a signal that you need validation. Every time you try to prove yourself, you lower your position without realizing it. And the worst part, you think you're doing the right thing. You think you're defending yourself. Yet you think you're clearing things up. You think you're staying in control. But you're not. You're being pulled into conversations you didn't choose, pulled into emotional responses you didn't plan, pulled into a game where the other person already knows how you'll react. Because most people are predictable. They respond too quickly, they speak too much, they reveal too easily. And once someone understands your pattern, they don't need to fight you. They just need to trigger you. That's how control works, not through force, but through reaction. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He didn't teach people to speak more. He didn't teach them to defend themselves. He didn't teach them to explain their intentions. He taught them something far more dangerous. Control your response, or someone else will. And stay silent when others expect noise. Stay still when others expect reaction. Stay detached when others try to pull you in. Because the one who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. And the one who cannot be controlled holds the real power in every situation. This is where everything changes, not in what you say, but in what you refuse to say. Not in how you react, but in how you don't. If you understand this, you'll start to see people differently. If you apply it, people will start to treat you differently. Subscribe now, because what you're about to hear is not advice. It's a shift in how power actually works. The moment you react emotionally, you stop controlling the situation, you start obeying it. It doesn't feel that way. It feels justified. Someone disrespects you, you respond. Someone questions you, and you defend. Someone pushes you, and you push back. It feels natural, almost automatic. But that's exactly the problem, because what feels automatic and is usually where control is lost. Look at it carefully. Did you choose that response, or was it pulled out of you? Did you pause and decide, or did you react the moment you felt something? That difference is everything, because the second your emotions take over, you are no longer leading. You are being led by anger, led by ego, led by the need to correct, defend, or prove. And anyone who can trigger those emotions can control your behavior. That's the hidden structure most people never see. They think they're standing up for themselves, but they're actually being guided into reactions, guided into arguments, guided into losing position. Machiavelli understood this at a deeper level than most. Power is not about who speaks louder. It's about who stays in control when speaking is expected. Because reaction reveals. It exposes your limits. It shows where you're sensitive. It tells people exactly where to apply pressure next time. Every time you react instantly, you give away information. And information is leverage. The powerful don't eliminate emotion. They master its expression. They feel everything, but they show almost nothing. There is always a gap between what happens and how they respond. In that gap, they decide. They slow the moment down. They observe instead of jumping in. They let the situation unfold before they step into it. And that pause is where control lives. Because when you don't react immediately, you force others to sit with uncertainty. They don't know what you're thinking, and they don't know what you'll do. They don't know if their attempt worked. And that lack of clarity shifts the power back to you. While they're waiting, you're deciding. While they're reacting, you're positioning. And over time, something changes. People stop trying to provoke you, not because they respect you yet, but because you're no longer predictable. And unpredictability is the first sign of real power. Reaction is easy. Anyone can do it. But restraint requires control. And control is what separates those who are led from those who lead. The moment you start over-explaining yourself, you quietly step out of power. It doesn't look like weakness, it looks like clarity, it feels like responsibility. You tell yourself, oh, I just want them to understand. I need to clear this up. I can't let them get the wrong idea. But beneath all of that, then, there is something else. A need. A need to be seen correctly, a need to be judged fairly, a need to control how others perceive you. And that need is where your position drops. Because the moment you need validation, you are no longer standing above the situation. You are inside it, reacting to it, trying to fix it. Powerful individuals don't rush to explain themselves, not because they have nothing to say, but because they don't feel the pressure to say it. They understand something most people never realize. The more you explain, the more you invite inspection. Every extra word becomes material for judgment. Every justification becomes something to question. Every clarification opens another door. And then once that door is opened, people walk through it. They challenge you, they analyze you, they test your consistency, not because they're against you, but because you've signaled that you can be questioned. Explanation creates access, and access reduces authority. Machiavelli placed immense value on perception, not by lying, but by controlling what is revealed, because what is unseen cannot be easily attacked. When you explain everything, you remove that protection. You make yourself available, readable, understandable, and while that may feel honest, it weakens your position, because power is not built on being fully understood. It is built on being respected, even when not fully explained. Silence does something explanation never can. It forces others to think. They begin to fill in the gaps. They question their own assumptions. They hesitate before making conclusions. And that hesitation works in your favor. Because while they are trying to figure you out, you are no longer being defined by them. You remain undefined. And the undefined holds weight. This doesn't mean you never speak. It means you choose when speaking adds value, and when silence adds more. Most people explain to feel safe. Powerful people stay silent because they already are. And once you understand that difference, you stop trying to be understood by everyone and start deciding who actually deserves an explanation. That shift alone changes how people approach you. Because when explanations become rare, your words become expensive. And what is expensive to one is respected. Not everything deserves your attention. But most people treat everything like it does. A comment appears. They respond. And a slight disrespect. They react. A small provocation. They engage. They think they're staying active. They think they're protecting their position. But in reality, they're being pulled into unnecessary battles. Because attention is not neutral, it is currency. And every time you give it away freely, you reduce its value. Look at how easily people get drawn in. A random opinion, and they feel the need to correct it. A subtle jab, and they feel the need to respond. A misunderstanding, and they feel the need to fix it. Why? Because ignoring feels uncomfortable. It feels like losing. It feels like weakness. It feels like letting something go unchecked. But that's the illusion. Ignoring is not losing control. It is refusing to give it. Because not every situation is meant to be handled. Some are meant to be dismissed. Machiavelli understood that power is not about engaging with everything. It's about choosing what is worth engaging. And most things aren't. Provocations are rarely accidental. They are designed to pull you in, designed to get a reaction, designed to test your boundaries. And once you engage, you've already stepped into their frame. You're now playing their game, on their timing, on their terms. That's where control shifts, because now your behavior is no longer self-directed. It is triggered. Triggered by what they said, triggered by what they did, triggered by how you felt in the moment. And once someone can trigger you, they don't need authority over you. They already have influence. Ignoring breaks that chain. It interrupts the expected pattern. No reaction, no response, no engagement. And suddenly, the dynamic changes. Even they wait, they wonder, they question whether their attempt even worked. Because silence removes feedback. And without feedback, control disappears. Over time, something interesting happens. People stop wasting energy trying to provoke you. Not because they've changed, but because you no longer respond the way they expect. You've become inefficient to manipulate, and manipulation thrives on predictability. When your reactions are no longer predictable, your position becomes harder to touch. Ignoring is not about avoidance. It is about precision. You are deciding what deserves your energy and what is beneath it. Because attention is a resource, and power belongs to the one who knows where not to spend it. People don't respect what they fully understand. They study it. They analyze it. They reduce it, but they don't respect it. Respect begins where certainty ends. When people can't fully read you, they become careful. Watch how quickly familiarity lowers your position. The more you explain yourself, the more predictable you become. The more you react, the easier you are to map. Your patterns become visible. Your limits become clear. Your behavior becomes expected. And once you are expected, you are manageable. There is no tension in predictability, no weight, no hesitation. People speak freely around you. They test you more. They push boundaries without thinking. Because they already know how you'll respond. That's where authority fades. Machiavelli understood something most people ignore. Power is not just about what you do. It's about what others don't know about you. What remains hidden creates space. And in that space, people begin to project. And they fill in the gaps with assumptions. They overthink your silence. They question your intentions. And when people start questioning, they slow down. They measure their words. They reconsider their actions. They hesitate. That hesitation is authority. You didn't demand it. You didn't announce it. You created it by withholding. Mystery is not about deception. It's about control over information. You decide what is revealed. You decide what remains unseen. You decide how much access others get. And most people don't give too much too quickly. They speak too openly. They explain too freely. They reveal too early, thinking it builds trust. Sometimes it does. But it also removes tension. And without tension, there is no weight to your presence. When everything about you is known, there is nothing left to respect. But when parts of you remain undefined, people pay attention. They observe more closely, they listen more carefully, they think twice before approaching you casually. Because they are no longer sure. And uncertainty that changes behavior. You don't need to act dominant. You don't need to prove anything. You simply need to stop revealing everything. Speak less than necessary, show less than expected. Leave space between your words and your intentions. Because the moment people feel they have fully figured you out, they stop respecting you. But when they can't quite read you, they never fully relax around you. And that subtle tension is where authority quietly forms. Watch how quickly people respond. A message arrives, and within seconds they reply. A comment appears, and they rush to defend themselves. A challenge is made, and they feel the need to answer immediately. It looks efficient, it feels responsible. But beneath that speed, there is pressure, and pressure is visible. Because urgency is rarely about importance, it is about discomfort. The discomfort of not responding, the discomfort of not being understood, the discomfort of leaving something unresolved. So people move fast, too fast. And in doing so, they reveal something they don't realize. They are not in control of their timing. They are reacting to it. Machiavelli understood that timing is not just strategy. It is status. The one who controls the pace controls the frame. When you respond instantly, you signal availability. When you defend immediately, you signal sensitivity. When you react without pause, you signal pressure. And pressure lowers position. Because the moment you feel rushed, you are no longer choosing your actions. You are being pushed into them. Look at how powerful individuals operate. They don't rush, not because they are slow, but because they are deliberate. There is always a gap, a pause, a moment where nothing happens. And in that moment, they regain control. They think, they observe, they decide. While others are reacting, they are positioning. That pause creates something most people overlook: wait. Their response carries more impact because it wasn't immediate. Their words feel intentional because they weren't rushed. Their presence feels stronger because it isn't driven by urgency. Urgency makes you predictable. People know you'll respond quickly. They expect you to react. They rely on your speed. And once your timing becomes predictable, it can be controlled. A delay breaks that pattern. It forces others to wait, to wonder, to reconsider, and waiting shifts power. Because the one who is waiting is not in control. This doesn't mean you ignore everything. It means you remove the need to respond instantly. You choose your timing. You create space. You slow the moment down, because speed may feel like control. But real control is measured. And when your responses are no longer driven by urgency, they start to carry authority, not because you said more, but because you chose when to say it. The more you need something from a situation, the less control you have in it. It's subtle. Most people don't see it. They think control comes from effort and from pushing harder and from caring more, but the opposite is true. And the more emotionally invested you are, the easier you are to move. Because investment creates attachment, and attachment creates vulnerability. If you need approval, you will explain more. If you fear losing respect, you will react faster. If you want to be liked, you will tolerate things you shouldn't. Every need ties you to an outcome. And the moment you are tied to an outcome, you are no longer free in your actions. You are influenced by what might happen. Machiavelli understood that power requires distance. Not distance from people, but distance from emotional dependency. Because the person who needs nothing cannot be pressured. Think about it. If someone can take something from you, your approval, your image, your position, then they already have leverage. They don't need to control you directly. They just need to threaten what you're attached to. And your behavior will adjust on its own. That's how most people are controlled. Not by force, but by fear of losing something. Detachment removes that fear. It creates space between you and the outcome. You still act, you still speak, you still engage, but you are no longer driven by need. You are driven by choice, and that changes everything. Because when you don't need validation, you don't rush to explain. When you don't fear judgment, you don't react emotionally. When you're not attached to approval, you don't lower your standards to keep it. Your presence becomes steady, unmoved, difficult to influence, and people notice. They feel it before they understand it. There is no urgency in you, no pressure, no visible dependency, and that lack of need creates authority. And because most people are driven by something: attention, respect, recognition, control. But when you're not chasing any of it, you become harder to manipulate, harder to read, harder to pull into situations. You don't follow the emotional current. You stand outside of it, observing, choosing, deciding. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. You see the situation without distortion. You respond without pressure. You act without fear. And in that state, you are no longer reacting to the environment. You are shaping it. Because the one who is least attached is always the most in control. Silence is not what most people think it is. It's not hesitation, it's not weakness, and it's not the absence of something to say. It is control. Most people speak to fill space. They respond quickly, and so nothing feels awkward. They explain more, so nothing is misunderstood. They react immediately, so nothing feels unresolved. But in doing so, they give away their position, because every word reveals something: your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions. And once those are visible, they can be used. Machiavelli understood that what you reveal becomes something others can work with, but what you withhold remains yours. Silence protects that. It keeps your intentions hidden. It keeps your position unclear. It keeps others guessing. And that uncertainty then creates tension. Not loud tension, not obvious tension, quiet tension. The kind that makes people think twice. Because when you don't respond, people don't relax. They wait. They replay the moment in their head. They question what you're thinking. They wonder what you'll do next. Yet in that space, they begin to reveal themselves. They speak more. They explain more. They try to fill the silence you created. And while they're doing that, you're learning. You're seeing patterns. You're noticing weaknesses. You're understanding the situation more clearly. Because the one who speaks less observes more, and the one who observes more acts with precision. Silence gives you time to think, time to assess, time to decide your next move without pressure. While others are reacting in the moment, you are shaping what comes after it. That's the difference. Most people act inside the situation. Powerful people act above it. They don't rush to respond. They don't feel the need to fill every gap. They let moments breathe. And in that breathing space, control shifts. Because silence does something words never can. And it forces others to step forward, to expose their intentions, to reveal their position, to show their level of control. And once that happens, you don't need to react. You don't need to explain. You already understand the game being played. And when you understand the game, you don't move impulsively. You move deliberately. Silence is not passive. It is calculated. It is chosen. It is used at the right moment, for the right effect. And once you learn to use it that way, you don't just communicate differently. You operate differently. Because the loudest person in the room rarely controls it, but the one who knows when to remain silent usually does. Most people go through life believing power is something visible, something loud, something expressed, something proven through words, reactions, and constant presence. But that belief is exactly why they never hold it for long. Because real power doesn't come from what you show. It comes from what you control. Control over your reactions, control over your words, control over your timing, control over your need to be understood, and most importantly, control over what you refuse to give. Every reaction you give away and costs you position. Every unnecessary explanation lowers your authority. Every moment of urgency reveals pressure. And every time you allow yourself to be pulled into something, you step out of control without realizing it. But once you see it clearly, you can't go back. You start noticing everything. How quickly people react, how easily they explain, how often they try to prove themselves, and suddenly, you understand the difference. They are being pulled. You are choosing. Or that's where the shift begins. Not in what you say, but in what you hold back. Not in how you respond, but in when you decide to respond. Not in how much you engage, but in how precisely you choose to engage. Because power is not about doing more. It's about doing less with intention, speaking less, but with weight, reacting less, but with control, engaging less, but with purpose. And over time, something changes around you. People become more careful, more measured, more aware of how they approach you. Not because you demanded respect, but because your behavior made them adjust. You are no longer easy to read, no longer easy to provoke, no longer easy to influence. And when that happens, you don't need to assert power, you carry it quietly, consistently, without effort. And because the real advantage was never in speaking more, or reacting faster, or explaining better. It was in mastering restraint, and once restraint becomes your default, everything else follows. Subscribe now, because once you start applying these laws, you won't just see the game differently. You'll realize you were never meant to play it the way most people do.